In 2002, the No Child Left Behind Act, or NCLB, was signed into law. This law sought to reform education by requiring states to create curriculum standards and assess students' proficiency in math, English language arts, and science. The intention of the law is to ensure that 100% of students are proficient in these subject areas by 2014. States also had to establish adequate yearly progress goals, known as AYP. If a school does not meet AYP, the state may impose a number of sanctions upon it. The type of sanctions depend on the number of years a school has failed to meet AYP. In Massachusetts, students are assessed annually beginning in grades 3 through 8 and 10 by the Massachusetts Comprehensive Assessment System Test, or MCAS.
No Child Left Behind is a federal law. There are state laws that sort of branch off of that, and all of them have massive impact on what happens in the classrooms. Probably the most obvious change is all the testing that's going on now. And that is actually rooted back to the state desires. I say state, but I mean states. Back in the 80s, Kentucky was the first state that underwent ed reform in the latest phase, the latest wave of ed reform. And that ed reform was propelled, as it was propelled in this state, by a lawsuit. There was a group of families that said that the funding formula, in this case Kentucky, was unfair. And they went to the courts, and the courts ruled in their favor, and the courts then said to the state of Kentucky, figure it out. Make the funding formula fair for all schools. So it went to the legislature. They came up with a large proposal. And the legislators said, well, if we're going to put all this money into public education, how do we know we're getting any bang for our buck? How do we know that our money means anything? So there's only one way of figuring that out. Let's test the kids.
When No Child Left Behind came in, then it started to really ramp up what was happening with it, because each state had to come up with a way to determine to the federal government how we're meeting that standard. So of course Massachusetts uses MCAS. So then MCAS became not only something that we did for ourselves to have a standards movement and to have a more comprehensive curriculum. Now it became part of the annual yearly progress. All children had to be proficient. So now we've got this added intensity to it.
When they started talking about doing a statewide test, so this is '92, the state was talking about a comprehensive test, and that's why the C is still in there. And the idea was that they would test as many areas of a school as they could. And they were originally talking about testing and looking at schools, not just the children's work, but the children's way of treating each other and treating adults, and how the schools looked, and what kind of final products the kids made. And it's kind of disappointing that that didn't happen, because now we just have a written test and it's called comprehensive.
The fundamental thing to understand about MCAS, and really there would be very few people who would immediately grasp this difference, is that the MCAS is a criterion reference test. And as a criterion reference test, you have an expectation, and then you're measuring how well the student meets that expectation. Okay, it's a little subjective. Whereas a normed reference test, they take a pool of children, they score the test results, and then they, rank order them from highest to lowest, and, the dead middle is average, and then it goes out the bell curve. Criterion reference tests are entirely different. Everybody is expected to meet that same standard, whether they are very able or they're very handicapped.